Okay, well, welcome to episode 20. Moving right along here, we're going to look today. Paul's going to go to Assos, and basically, things go really quick here. This third journey, a lot of this really, other than the time that he spent in Ephesus, this is just a running back through and touching base with everybody. And so he left Ephesus, we saw in the last episode, and he kind of just went back through Greece, Macedonia down into Greece, stayed there in Corinth for 3 months over the winter. He wrote a letter to the Romans while he was there, and at some point here he hears about a famine going on in Jerusalem, and so he's going to skip around and just run all the way back through all these. And a lot of these places, he just stays for a night, couple of days. And so, really, we're only going to stop at the places where things really happen. And we're going to see here, Paul, uh, there's a group of people that left Corinth together. And of course, at some point, they end up meeting with Luke. And so he rejoins them, and everybody kind of goes to Troas. But while they're there, Paul walks on, and so you're going to see on the map here, Assos is just a little south of Troas. So Paul actually leaves the group, walks down here, and he gets caught up on Sunday, the first day of the week. He kind of meets with these people in the town and starts preaching, and I mean the preaching goes on and on and on late into the night. And you're going to see here this young man that falls asleep, falls out of a window, and basically dies. And so Paul restores his life, and it's interesting to me. There's so many people here in modern day. It's really hard for me to even call this part of the modern day church because I think all these people are like false teachers and things. But there's a lot of people that claim to have some sort of apostolic sanction, apostolic gifts, apostolic powers, and of course, there's a lot of things you can fake by manipulation and deception, like being able to heal people, and being able to speak in tongues when all you're trying to justify is babble, and that's what you're calling tongues. It's easy to get away with it, but you can't fake the ability to bring people back to life. And Paul is not the only apostle that rose people from the dead, and so but modern day people that claim to have apostolic gifts, this is one that they don't have. The Bible also said about the apostles, if the Spirit of God was on you as an apostle and you had these abilities to heal and to raise people from the dead, you could even do things that were, would be dangerous to most people, and they wouldn't really affect you. And so, uh, and we'll see an example of that when Paul was bit by a snake. But uh, this is one of those areas where modern day people don't really try to fake it. This name and claim of stuff. They can't fake this, and so they don't even go there. But let's look real quick at the map. Okay, so here's our map, and this is the one I'm using for the third journey. Of course, he was in Ephesus for a long time. While he was there, he had interactions with the people of Corinth, but finally he goes around to visit them, and now he's only there for the winter months, and then he hears of this famine, so he's going to stop back by all these little towns and collect money. And you can just see all these short little dots and jigs and jags as he moves through here and stops everywhere along the way collecting money for this famine. And so he's going to leave Corinth. A group of people are going to go with him, and they're going to go up to Philippi, and there they meet with Timothy, and then they're going to sail to Troas, and Paul's going to walk down here. Right here's Ephesus. And so I can mark it, I think. Marking it, yeah. Once I get to mark it, it's going to make it little. So, but right here, and I guess you can't really. Oh, I don't know how to increase the size once you do that. But anyway, right there it is. And so we'll move on from there. This is the timeline of Paul's life that we've been following as we've gone through his childhood, his early years, his um 3 missionary journeys, and of course, we're in the 3rd journey right here. It's around 57 AD, and, he's gonna leave to collect money. He's gonna leave, Corinth, which is where he's been. He's gonna collect money for his famine, and he's gonna run back through all these towns, uh, on his way back, and so we're gonna stop here in Assos where he, stops, and, of course, we're gonna see this, Eutychus that he raises from the dead. So, let me read this little thing on Assos here. This is the history. It's a small town in modern day Turkey. After leaving the Platonic Academy in Athens, Aristotle actually went to Assos, where he opened an academy, married Pythias, adopted the adopted daughter of King Hermias. The academy, in the Academy of Assos, Aristotle became the chief of a group of philosophers, and together with them, he made innovative observations in zoology and biology. When the Persians attacked Assos, King Hermias was caught and put to death, and so Aristotle fled to Macedonia, which was ruled by his friend King Philippi of Macedon, and of course, we go through Philippi here. There, he tutored Philip's son Alexander the Great, and there's a modern statue of Aristotle in the town entrance. And so it's an interesting town. At some point during Paul's 3rd journey, he received word of another famine in Jerusalem and intended to raise money. He left Corinth, passed back through all these cities as he arrived in Troas. Along the way, of course, Timothy and a bunch of others went with him. Then Luke joined him, and they were all just part of this famine relief collection in Troas during the Passover. They wanted to spend time with them, and so they sent companions by ship. Uh, and he was in Assos for which is 20 miles away. During a marathon sermon in an upstairs room, he preached late in the night. Of course, we know we're going to see here Eutychus falls asleep and falls down and is picked up dead. And Paul goes downstairs, throws himself on him, says, "Don't be alarmed, he's alive." So we're going to look at that. And this example Paul gave us, taking up collections for those in need. This example has survived the test of time and still being practiced in churches today. In fact, in the last couple of years, I think I've been a part of a church collection for a family whose home burnt down, also a family who lost something else. I don't remember. There were 2 or 3 different things that we collected money for in our church, and so that's just when fellow brothers and sisters, other congregations have needs, the churches gather together and in support of them. Paul was not showing, did not go around healing and performing miracles on a regular basis, which is why I think that modern day people are out of line. But there was some examples in the New Testament where we do see that God had certainly empowered Paul with these abilities, and most of the people that had these abilities didn't do it for show. They did it, for God, and the people that were doing it, that are doing it for show, aren't doing it according to God's will, in my opinion. So here's how fast things went. Okay, so he was in Ephesus, and there was this uproar over, Diana of the Ephesians. Of course, that finally calmed down, and so he left. He goes through Macedonia, he goes through all these towns, he goes through Greece, and he ends up in Corinth, and he spends the winter there, stays there for 3 months, writes a letter to the Romans, and then leaves. And all of that is covered in these 3 verses. Okay, and in verse 4 it says they're accompanying him uh, into Asia, Sopater of Berea, uh, and of the theologians, you had Aristarchus and Secundus and Gaius of Derbe and Timotheus, and of Asia, Titus and Trophimus. And so you have all these people that leave Corinth with him and head back through Macedonia. And so these going before tarried with us at Troas. And so here is he, them, and then you get to Troas and it's us. And so, once they got to Philippi, I think Luke joined them, and they go to Troas. It says, after we sailed away from Philippi, after the days of unleavened bread, we came to them in Troas 5 days and were able to abode 7. And so this is him, Luke, recording this as he's with them. They left Philippi and came to Troas. But Paul, we find, if you look down here at verse 13, you see Paul had walked on and left them in Troas. It said We went before to ship and sailed to Assos, there intending to take in Paul, for he appointed minding himself to go afoot. And so Paul, when they got to Troas, Paul left there and went to Assos, and they stayed in Troas. And so here in verse 13, we see them catching back up to him. But I want to read this section of him while he's there by himself in Assos. And it says, upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came to break bread, Paul preached to them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. And there were many lights in the upper chamber, and many gathered together. And there sat in a window a certain young man named Eutychus, and he being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep, and fell down from the third loft and was taken up dead. And Paul went down, fell on him, and embracing him said, trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. And then therefore was come up again, and they broke bread and was eaten, and talked a long while until till the break of day, and he departed. And so basically he was there all night long, and he rose this guy from the dead. And then they I don't know if they had communion or if they just had a meal and fellowship, but they broke bread together, and they brought the young man alive, and were not a little comforted. And so they were joyful over this. And then, of course, we see in verse 13 where Luke and Timothy and the other guys that were still in Troas took a ship down here and met up with Paul. And it says, and when he met up with us at Assos, we took him in and came to Middling. And so we're going to talk about that next week. But that's really what happened there. And so he did raise this young man from the dead. This guy that fall asleep while he was preaching. A lot of preachers hate it when people fall asleep on them, but I mean, it's happened ever since the first century. So don't get too discouraged if you're a pastor and somebody falls asleep on you. But so next time we're going to move on to this next spot, and like I say, a lot of this is moving from place to place just to collect money for a famine. So we're going to talk about a lot of towns, but not really talk about them. Of course, this next place that he's going to stop at, he's going to call leaders from Ephesus over and have a meeting with them. So we'll talk a little bit about Miletus here when we go back through. But that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next time. God bless you.